I'm very interested in the idea of microdosing, as are you probably if you are clicking on this video. I want to know how to use it in my life. I want to know if there are any health benefits. Are there any drawbacks? I come to this as a biologist. I'm asking questions. I did a video on the science of microdosing where I talked to some of the real experts who are studying this at a very high level. I was fascinated by it. Now, I'm going to continue this series with the actual interviews from some of the people that I talked to. The person I'm talking to here is Greg Spivak, who is a optimal wellness coach, I think is how he goes by. We're going to be talking about how he uses it with clients, how he recommends people to use it, the health benefits that he's seen with his clients. And I'm just going to be asking a lot of questions that I hope you have as well. So I hope you find this interesting if you are interested in microdosing, and we can just explore this topic together. And like always, this is just a casual chat, but one that I hope has some interest for you all out there. Leave your comments below. Make sure you don't look at the bots, they're terrible, and we will just get started with the interview. How would you describe yourself, Greg?
I coin myself as an optimal health coach. I work with clients on a variety of formats, but basically the crux of it all is helping everyone become their most optimal version of themselves. We all have a choice to live life optimally, or drift through life, you could say. I always like to come back to this question that if when you wake up in the morning, if you have a choice to take the red pill or the blue pill to live an average day and let yourself just kind of drift through the day and be a product of society, or to choose to step into your optimal self and achieve or pursue your optimal self during the day, which would you choose? I think everyone was going to take that that red pill, but not everyone realizes that there's even an option. So that's where I come in.
Yeah, I mean, I grew up as an athlete, and I think that optimal health and improving my well-being is definitely one of the things that I'm focused on. How did you get mixed in with the idea of mushrooms and microdosing and using that in optimal health?
It's a long story. So you just mentioned that you grew up, as an athlete. So did I. I grew up, competing at a very high level in a variety of sports. I became a national judo champion. I played Division I college football. With that, with all that, I was always trying to pursue to be bigger, stronger, faster, sharper. Everything that was all towards brought towards for athletics. And eventually, when I got done playing football in college, I was a broken mess. I've had 7 reconstructive surgeries. My career ended with one last big injury, and I'm having an identity crisis. I'm, in my early to mid 20s, and I don't really know who I am. This identity of being an athlete is now gone. I can no longer do a lot of physical activity that I once did. I can't, cut laterally and go play pickup basketball or volleyball or do anything like that anymore because of the risk of blowing my knee out again. So life is now forever changed, and I'm having to figure out who I am as a person, which I didn't really have to do before because I had this strong identity. So then with that came a lot of self-discovery of understanding that there's this voice in our head that won't ever shut up. It's always talking to us. And so coming to terms with having a relationship with that. So that brought me to meditation, started listening to, getting some really good downloads from people like Tim Ferriss and Joe Rogan with all their amazing guests that would come on and talk about this concept of consciousness. And then with that, I got into the Wim Hof method, because now you have this individual who's taking the Eastern and Western worlds, and he's marrying them together through the Western religion, which is science. And that spoke to me a lot because I grew up in a Western medical household. My dad was a surgeon. He came here from the Soviet Union with $5 in his pocket and made himself into everything that he was. And so then growing up in the shadow of him, it also, it stunted my identity as a man. So I had to really figure that out a lot in my 20s through a lot of trial and error and a lot of shadow work. And I eventually had a big macro experience on mushrooms on the top of a mountain on a backpacking trip in the top of the High Sierra. And it was as if a monkey was taken off my back. This level of pressure was taken off of me. And I realized I was okay to love myself. I'm okay to pursue, what I feel called to in this world without any fear of giving a shit what anyone else thinks, because I'm doing it for myself. I had a big download recently on this retreat I was on in Sonora. I was talking with a shaman, and he had said that, one of his most profound things that he said, man, a few words, but very powerful words. And if someone else said them, it would almost be taken as if it's too simplistic. But he said that you should be happy and you should enjoy your life. And the power and the authenticity of which he said it in hit me like a thunderbolt. And it made it just, it's, we have, that's our right. That's our job as humans, is to do that. So after that macrodose experience, I started finding out about microdosing, and I realized that the power, that the level of consciousness that I tapped into on a macro front, I was able to take pieces of that away, the present moment awarenesses of it, and bring it into my day-to-day life without the psychoactive components of it. I was able to be more intuitive and in touch with my day-to-day, with whatever I was doing, from working out to conversating with clients, family, loved ones. I was able to be more intentional and present with my day. At the end of the day, that's what we all want. We want to be more present, because when you're more present, you can be happy. You can't be happy in the past or the future. It's only right here and right now.
So you've been working with clients, and you recommend microdosing. How have you, you've obviously seen reports come back. What are the benefits that you've seen from microdosing, particularly with clients, and then for yourself as well, I suppose?
Everyone seems to have an impact from this. I feel like so many people that come to this from different backgrounds. Some people come with being on some sort of pharmaceutical, Xanax, SSRI, or a drug addiction, or depression and anxiety. Some people just need the light turned back on, in their lives. And microdosing has, been an amazing tool for it, an amazing vessel for those people to be able to get alleviation and get more in touch with themselves. Because when you look at the neuroscience of what's going on when you're on a psychedelic, it's exactly the same as when you're in a meditative state. Take aside the neurotransmitter releases, the areas of the brain that are lit up with oxygen and blood flow and downregulated are the exact same when you're meditating. So thus you can hypothesize that you're bringing in, you're eating, you're ingesting consciousness. And that is something that no one really necessarily takes into consideration, that it's a tool for consciousness, just like meditation is, just like doing anything intentional with your life, walking in nature, breath work, working out, when you're totally focused. They're all tools to be, to get more present moment awareness in your life. So it's a powerful tool. And some people don't realize that there's a path to be walked, to pursue your, essentially your purpose, to have this self-realization. And sometimes it takes, taking something, from an exogenous source, such as a microdose, to increase that level of awareness and to realize that I need to work on pursuing this level of consciousness in my life. So how would you describe it feels like when you're microdosing? Like, what does a microdose feel like? How would you describe that? So there's one of my mentors in this world, Wim Hof. I'm a certified instructor in that. He has a famous saying that feeling is understanding. So when you feel something going on, when you feel something, you can trust that there is something working on. There's something, at a chemical, at a cellular level, that's going on within the body. And there's a difference between effects and benefits, effects versus benefits. So if you're feeling effects now, like where the world is definitely much more vivid, colors are really popping, you're feeling really kind of light and free. This is definitely more effects than benefits. There are benefits to be had with that, but now you're sort of past that microdosing realm. But now when you're experiencing the benefits with really minimal to no effects, that's kind of what the sweet spot of where microdosing is. I always tell people when I get them rolling on a microdosing protocol is to take it and forget it, completely forget that you took it, and then at the end of your day, like when you kind of remember that you've a microdose earlier in the day, audit yourself, audit your day. How was it? How do you feel? Were you more in tune? Were you more focused? Were you clear with your day? Were you more intentional? Did you notice like your day just blinked by and time and space was kind of forgotten about, and you were just so wrapped up in the moment that you had an amazing day? So I always ask people, think about like the most amazing day you've had, not like a day like when you got married or you had a kid or something like that. Just a normal average day where you just felt so damn good. And that's what microdosing helps you do more often. It helps you to feel like yourself, your best version of yourself, because you're able to be more present with your day. And like I said before, the more present you are, the happier you are, because you can't experience happiness in the past or the future. It's only something that you could experience here and now.
So do you find sometimes you have to help coach people to find that sweet spot? Like it's a little different for everyone. Is that?
Yeah. So I always tell people to start small and take it from there. So you get to choose which side of the pool that you want to play on. So, I always say, start small, see how you feel, and you can always adjust from there. Because if you take in, say, too much and you're now past the microdosing realm and you're in what I call the museum dosing realm, and you're trying to, do some like real quantitative work and like really like, do some, critical thinking for whatever your career is, your job is, it might impede that process. Now, if you're an artist and you're painting and really invoking the muse for some really creative work, then that's probably a good thing. So it really depends like what your intention is for ingesting the medicine.
I see. And do like the average user is probably not going to grow mushrooms, do the whole process, grind them up, throw them into a microdose. I mean, first of all, it's a difficult hurdle for people.
Yeah.
I know that the trend is there and people want to experiment with this potentially. Mm-hmm. Obviously, there's hurdles to kind of like walk around. How do people get started in something like this? How do you approach it?
So it's a good question, because just like you said, like, if you want to take a calculated dose, you do have to have, fruiting body, and then which is just the part of the mushroom that's above the ground. You have to take that, you have to blend it, then you have to like, somehow get into capsules, and it's a daunting process. I know a handful of people who have done that in the past, and it's sort of a massive pain in the ass. And then I know other people that just say, oh, well, I just take a piece of the cap or a piece of the stem and I just eat that. I'm microdosing. And if you're doing that latter method, like you have no idea how much you're taking in. So sometimes, you could be doing the perfect amount if you're going on a hike or hanging out at the beach, but you have no idea like how much really, milligrams of psilocybin of mushroom is inside of there. And you could be taking way too much for whatever the given task is that you're doing. So it's important to be calculated with it. Imagine if that was like, some sort of pre-workout, and you're supposed to take one scoop, but instead you just took a serving, like a serving size scooper with that's like 4 or 5 times the size of what you're supposed to take, and then you're just totally like you've overdone it. Not that this is the same effect as pre-workout, but that's something that's a way people can relate with this, I guess. So I recommend a company called Muse. So Muse, I'm friends with these guys. They're really great people. They've created a microdosing product that helps you basically be able to choose like what part of the pool that you want to play on. They have 4 different products, ranging in different amounts of mushroom inside. So from everything from 55 milligrams, which is what they call a nanodose, up to 2 grams, which is their macrodose like chocolate bar experience. So you get to really decide what part of the pool that you want to play on given your particular intention.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so there's different ways that you could order a copy and you can get the product somehow, or that's just because you're friends with them. I don't know how that works.
Yeah. So obviously it's an interesting time. We're in this Renaissance period in the Western world right now. This is becoming much more available to people, and as the demand is really becoming very apparent that not only do people want this, but the mankind, we need this. We really need this to help heal a lot of the shit going on, with our mental and spiritual spaces in this Western world. So you'll see there's a lot of different companies and a lot of different people in the space coming forth, helping to make this medicine more readily available to the people.
Okay. So tell me about the protocol that, I guess, what protocol do you use? And is that the same that you recommend to people? Because I think people are unsure how to take it. It's different from what I gather from a normal pharmaceutical that you would take every morning at 8 a.m. with breakfast.
Yeah. So starting out, there was a number of different, because this is new. Microdosing is something that's very new. It's not like people have been doing macrodosing of medicine, of not just mushrooms, other plant medicine, ethogenic substances, throughout millennia, and just taking however much that is. It's not like it's never been really very calculated with this. So figuring out, the perfect microdosing protocol is something that's, I believe, is very intuitive. I know Paul Stamets was doing something recently with collecting surveys on people's microdosing protocols to hone in on what's the perfect, what's the ideal amount, what's the ideal, days on and days off. So that's really, we're really figuring that out right now. But I firmly believe that it's very intuitive to the individual. And, you have to first, start small and see what works for you and go from there. So I always recommend people, when they first start, they want a particular protocol, is to start with 4 days on and 3 days off. And that's so you don't build up too much of a tolerance, just like you can with any substance, from melatonin to alcohol to anything, in between, caffeine. So that's for the tolerance component of it. Some people like to do 2 days on, 2 days off. Some do every other day. Some do every day, just because they really feel like that's the best thing that works for them. So it's really up to the individual. And then some people, really, just like myself now, I take it when I feel called to taking it. I feel where I'm going to take it with intention, that I want to, have that extra, that tool, working for me and working with me during my day. So I'm very intuitive with when I do it now. Sometimes I'll do that protocol 4 on 3 off. Sometimes I'll go weeks without taking a microdose, because I feel like I'm in that flow, and I don't necessarily need it.
Mm-hmm. So one of the things I've been curious about is this idea of building a tolerance. I understand how it works with caffeine, because I think, like a lot of people, I'm a little bit addicted to caffeine.
I see your coffee right there.
Yeah, exactly. Well, this is yerba tea, yerba mate, but it's the same thing.
That's
right?
packed full of caffeine.
Oh, it's the exact same thing.
Yeah.
And so if I don't have it, it's kind of like, I feel pretty crummy on the days I don't have it, because I've built up this tolerance to it. Have you heard any reports, or is there any reliable info on the same with microdosing? Because it doesn't seem like there's a free lunch. Like, you can't just feel good and then you kind of come a little lower to your baseline. But does your baseline dip? It just seems like it would have to, right?
So I don't. So that's a great question. So you're saying, I know from a macrodose from perspective, when you're flooding the brain with a lot of serotonin, that you're sort of draining your receptors, and you're going to go below baseline, and then you're going to build yourself back up. That's kind of what you're saying, right?
Yeah. Well, I heard people talk about dopamine in the same way. Like, you get highs of dopamine and then you're going to go a little low. How would this not be the same? Or maybe it is different. Maybe it is holds a different model. Yeah.
So that's a really good question. So the psilocybin has been shown, is shown to release serotonin in the brain, which obviously serotonin is our feel good neurotransmitter. A lot of actual serotonin, is majority of it, to be honest, is actually produced in our guts. So keeping our guts healthy and living a healthy lifestyle and eating a healthy diet will help you to have more serotonin readily available. And it's funny, because SSRIs, the new research is showing that they actually don't even stimulate serotonin secretion. So that's pretty interesting. But in regards to this, the amount that you're taking in is such a small amount that it's more of a therapeutic response from a neurotransmitter standpoint, rather than that of like you're depleting your resources to have like a high, because you're not high. It's the benefits versus the effects. You're more tuned in, but you're not high, essentially. So if you're doing, 2, 3, 4 grams, yeah, you probably shouldn't be doing that every single day. Otherwise, you're going to burn out your neurotransmitters. But that's, and you wouldn't even feel called to doing that every day. After you have an experience like that, there's a level of integration where you need to go and sit with that and process that and integrate that, what you experience, what the dissolving of your ego showed you. And then, after you're sort of, your normal waking consciousness sort of comes back and hopefully now integrated with from the medicine, you might feel called to doing it, some period down the line. So, if you are, if you're thinking you're going to deplete your neurotransmitters from microdosing, I would disagree with that personally. But I'm also not a neuroscientist, so I can't say that for a fact. But I can only say it from experience and also working with numerous clients and hearing countless testimonials, because there's a residual effect on the days when you're not taking it, that you feel you're more in tune, you feel you're more alive in your body and in the world. So there's residual effects when you're not taking it, because it's working even though when it's not in the system, because you're now creating new neurocircuitry of creating these new neurocognitive pathways, which is essentially neuroplasticity. So the more you actually do this, the more you actually necessarily don't need to do it, if that makes sense. It doesn't mean that you don't need to do it altogether, but the more you see it, you see these patterns working in your normal day-to-day life.
Tell me again what some of the unintended benefits are from microdosing.
Unintended? Like, what do you mean?
Well, it seems to me like people may have anxiety or depression or different ailments that they would seek out microdosing for.
Mm-hmm.
But it doesn't seem to me anyone is ever like, well, I'm not working out enough. Why don't I start microdosing? But it seems like people start to get healthier after microdosing.
Yeah.
It's a little bit of an unintended thing.
Yeah.
Like, oh, wow, I didn't realize that's happening now in my life.
Yeah. You're more tuned in. Yeah, you're more tuned with everything. Like I was saying before, it's increasing your consciousness. So when you're more conscious, you're more aware. You're able to look at yourself more, without the blinders on. The ego, which is the mind, it's there to keep you alive and nothing else. So it's purely survival. No, that's it. It has nothing to do with being happy and you kind of living intentionally. So that actually takes effort. It actually takes conscious practice in order to be happy. So when you improve your level of consciousness by doing things like meditation, microdosing, going into nature, where your stimulation levels are reduced and you're more plugged into everything, you're able to look at the rest of your life and audit yourself more, from a less of an ego standpoint, because the ego is there to like protect your identity. It's your framework of reality like that, and a lot of that's constructed from early adolescence programming that was put onto you. So we all have our own traumas. They're all individual to ourselves. And a lot of these traumas, shape our framework for the world. And a lot of the subconscious constructs that have been programmed. So the more in tune and present you can be, the more you can actually realize those things and rewire and wire and fire in new neurocircuitry. And that's ultimately going to make you, a healthier, more rounded person. So, it's very likely that you start microdosing to stop or reduce your anxiety or nuke your depression, but then you realize that, okay, well, I should probably start eating better and treating this meat vessel a lot better than I am. I should probably exercise more now because I feel good with that, and I know I want to look good because if I look good I feel good, and if I feel good I'm more inclined to look better, and vice versa. And it's all synergistic.
Okay, before we wrap up, you have a lot of experience just meeting people in all sorts of walks of life.
Yeah.
Do you recommend microdosing for people? And if who do you recommend it for? Is there someone when you're like, they might benefit from it? Like, how does that work?
So when I see people that are wound up, when I see people whose egos are so rigid that they can't think greater than the way that they're feeling, they need microdosing. they need this medicine because they like the other tools of consciousness that are available to them. They're not even aware of them. They have no idea that there's a path to be walked, and they have zero idea. So that's a great tool for them to help them to open their eyes up a bit, to take the blinders off. Everyone can benefit from microdosing. I've worked with clients, upwards of 80 years old. I've worked with clients in their 20s. Everyone can benefit from increasing their consciousness. It's completely safe, and there's nothing to lose and everything to gain.
Nice. Well, that's I think very appealing for people trying to improve who they are, especially the safe part and not huge consequences, because you can always stop. I guess that's the thing. It's such a small dose. Yeah. So I'm going to leave links to a lot of the stuff that you're doing, and anywhere people want to find out more about what you talked about.
Yeah, totally.
Where can people find out about you? Where's the best place?
Best place would be Instagram. You could search me at OFX_coach. That's at OFX_coach. And then I also have a website that's ofxhealth.com.
Awesome. Well, thanks for taking the time. I appreciate it, Greg. Absolutely.
And if you guys want to learn about Muse, they are on Instagram, I believe, at mymuselife. It's at mymuselife. And then I believe the website is mymuselife.com.
Fantastic.